In November 1910, Senator Aldrich of Rhode Island, Paul Warburg, and 4 other experts sneaked off to discuss bank reform, at a secret hideaway on Jekyll Island off the Georgia coast. With Democrats now in control of Congress, and progressives railing against Wall Street, the bankers had to travel incognito, lest they be accused of hatching a cabal. As part of the elaborate charade, the conference participants pretended to be sportsmen, outfitting themselves as duck hunters. But why was such secrecy was necessary if a central bank was really such a great idea? We are told, in effect, that Warburg and others hatched a cabal, to avoid being accused of hatching a cabal. Because it was the product of a furtive conclave, and secrecy still surrounds many central bank decision-making activities, it is hardly surprising that there are so many dark suspicions and banking conspiracy theories involving the Federal Reserve Bank. Paul Warburg was the only person in America who understood how a central bank works. In 1912 and 1913, he drew up the basic plan for the Federal Reserve banking system, and he drafted the Federal Reserve Act. In December 1913, President Wilson signed the act, establishing the new central bank. If anyone can be called the father of the Federal Reserve Bank, the New York Times has rightly noted, it is Paul Warburg. The new central bank's board of governors, which for several years included Paul Warburg, became top-heavy with political appointees whose policy of loose credit set the stage for the Great Depression. America's economic collapse of the 1930s can be traced to the Federal Reserve's Operation by incompetence and self-serving hacks, or by deliberate design. While Paul Warburg was making America safer for financiers, his older brother, Max, was busy in Hamburg helping finance construction of Germany's new merchant fleet, through the Hapag Company. Because the Warburg family fortune was built on financing international trade, Max Warburg naturally sought to encourage the growth of such trade. For the same reasons, international bankers encouraged the removal of tariffs and other trade barriers. The Hapag Company, headed by another German Jew, Albert Ballin, played a major role in building Germany's mighty merchant and military fleets. Britain regarded the German challenge as a grave threat to its naval hegemony, and it was this rivalry that was a major contributing factor to the First World War. Max Warburg and Albert Ballin foresaw the catastrophe of World War and Germany's naval expansion, just as Paul Warburg saw that his creation was pursuing an unsound monetary policy. In each case, the Warburgs were central players in the coming disaster. Max Warburg's meshing with his historical moment cost the Hamburg branch of the family dearly. The Allied blockade of Germany during the First World War severely hurt the Warburg family bank, M.M. Warburg and Company. This, along with the disastrous post-war inflation, nearly mined the firm, which was saved only with a large loan from Max's American brothers. Because Max Warburg was so familiar with international finance, the post-war Weimar Republic government asked him to represent the German treasury as a delegate in the war reparations negotiations. In spite of being Jews, the Warburg family did very well for itself in Germany until the mid-1930s. Indeed, Germany's Jews generally prospered until the collapse of the Weimar Republic and the National Socialists coming to power in 1933. During the interwar era, 3/4 of German Jewry were middle class or richer. There were no legal barriers to Jewish advancement in any field, and Jews were rapidly assimilating through intermarriage. In the year just before Hitler came to power, more than half of Jews who married took non-Jewish spouses. None of this means, of course, that there weren't barriers to social mobility for Jews. But similar restrictions affected many non-Jews as well. Class barriers were a major feature of pre-Hitler Germany. What is remarkable, though, is not the degree of intolerance, but the extent to which Jews were tolerated, and even encouraged in Germany. Jews were permitted to wield tremendous power and influence, even though so many of them, with the Warburgs at the forefront, were part of a mighty, supranational Jewish network that was dedicated above all to its own particular interests. Members of this international Jewish elite cemented its ties through marriage. For example, Felix Warburg married Frieda Schiff, daughter of probably the most powerful Jew in America, the German-born Jacob Schiff. Felix's brother Paul married Nina Loeb, daughter of another prominent Jewish banker, Solomon Loeb. An international network of Jewish organizations and charities devoted to the well-being of Jewish communities around the world operated as a shadow government for this scattered, stateless population. As leading members of the Jewish royalty, the Warburgs played an important role in resettling hundreds of thousands of Russian and Eastern European Jews in the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, underwriting the development of a Jewish cultural center in Palestine, and other projects. They also played a major role in domestic and international politics. During the Russo-Japanese War 1904 to 1905, Felix Warburg's father-in-law, Jacob Schiff, a fierce enemy of Tsarist Russia, helped finance the Japanese war effort. Driven by intense hatred of Russia's conservative, anti-Jewish government, Schiff kept Russia from obtaining Wall Street financing prior to the overthrow of the Tsarist regime and American entry into World War I.